Today is the last day to register to vote. I'm James Bellini, and this is Live. We'll get to the news in a minute, but first, Wednesday night is Business Networking Night in San Angelo. The crew from ERA Newland & Company, San Angelo Live, and the ArcLight Bar and Grill invite you to an early evening of business networking. Ryan Newland of ERA Newland has the free drink tickets, and everyone who owns a San Angelo business or runs one is invited, as well as sales guys, or if you just like to network with the movers and shakers of the Concho Valley. Stop by the ArcLight Bar and Grill, located inside the Clarion Hotel at 441 Rio Concho Drive, on Wednesday from 5 to 7 p.m. Business networking done right at the ArcLight Bar and Grill. Kicking off the news, San Angelo Live and Carpet Tech have partnered up to give you a chance to win a $250 gift card to get your house in order for the upcoming holiday season. Presenting the Haunted House Competition. Dress up your house for Halloween with props, inflatables, and whatever else you can think of, and on October 30th, we will announce the winner. To enter, all you have to do is send us a photo of your house with your name and a phone number or an email address so we can get a hold of you should you win. The $250 can go towards all of Carpet Tech services like carpet and tile cleaning, restorations, and more. Check out the article on sanangelolive.com. A San Angelo man has been arrested for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon after an alleged psychotic break. According to court documents, on September 4th, 36-year-old Mark Ahola allegedly threatened the victim with a metal baseball bat. She was able to get away from him and call the police, and when police were speaking with Ahola, he started speaking about objects and noises that weren't present. The victim stated he had been dealing with psychosis for the past several years, but the violence has gotten worse. Ahola was booked in the Montgomery County Jail and is currently being held on $50,000 bond. Have you downloaded the San Angelo Live mobile app yet? It's free and it's the best app in the business. Download it off the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store to stay up to date with news in San Angelo. And today is the last day to register to vote for the upcoming election on November 5th. Notably on the ballot, the presidential election, where current Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are on the ballot for a chance at the White House, and Proposition A for the San Angelo Independent School District, which you can find more information for on sanangelolive.com. And right after this show, after the sports segment of this show, as SAISD's Chief Financial Officer Dr. Meryl Brandon was in studio today. Also, early voting starts on October 21st. Into weather, the highs have ticked up just a bit this week. Right now it's 87 degrees outside, and tonight the low is 60. Tomorrow the high will be up around 89 degrees, with a low tomorrow night down around 61. Then on Wednesday the high gets above 90 at 92, and the low drops down to 62. It will be sunny and clear all week long with calm winds out of the south-southeast. When we come back, we'll hear from Central head coach Mark Smith, and then Dr. Meryl Brandon talks about Proposition A with Joe Hyde in studio. But first, a word from the Bass Bunch.
$59,999 for a new Ford Expedition XLT. Get a full-size 3-row seating SUV for the family that needs a lot of room. Equipped with a moonroof, second-row captain seats, along with many more features, make it the absolute perfect SUV. You can only get deals like this at Jim Bass Ford, Houston Hart and Arden Road, or shop 24/7 at bassbunch.com, or use this QR code. Yep, the one on my shirt.
All right, Coach, one of my favorite quotes from you earlier this season, about a week or two ago, was, 2 wins sounds good, but it makes 3 wins sound even better. Can you just kind of describe how this first half of the season has gone for you going into this year?
I've just seen a ton of growth and development within the team. And, I think in all 3 phases, offense, defense, and kicking game, I think there's a little bit of, the newness to a first game with a new staff, and, how are things going to look, from how do we do pregame to what does the sideline look like between series to how are we going to function within each other during the course of an actual game. And so from the progression from the first week all the way, to 2 Friday nights ago, it's really just been dramatic, and I've just seen a steady climb within the team, and a team that has an attitude to just kind of keep my head down, my nose to the grindstone, just keep chopping wood, keep working to improve every day. As a coach, you just love that. You got a team that has that kind of mentality, that type of attitude. Even though a rough start to begin the season, we've just progressed, and you've seen it in all 3 phases. The team has come together. I just like it right now. We're playing really just clean, good football. I told the staff, our staff meeting, yesterday afternoon. I mean, that drive at the end of the half against, Waco, where, we end up running the ball and squirt one out there, and then we end up executing an out route there with 6 seconds to go to bring the field goal unit on to kick a field goal, long field goal as the half expired. That's just really good football, good management of everything, and it's coming together, in terms of, clock management, offense, defense, kicking game, how everything's working together. You're seeing the signs of a really, disciplined, good team right now.
Yeah, Coach, going into an open week, sort of what was your focus, what was your message to the team before district?
I told them that it came at a good time. Obviously there's a couple things you want to accomplish during an open week. You want to maintain your edge, that you have. And I think human nature tends to say, well, there's not a game coming up this Friday night. It's okay to relax a little bit during the course. We actually turned up the volume, on the guys, last week, not in terms of how long we were out on the practice field, but the mental intensity that's required in that moment. I think that's an important teaching lesson, especially to a team that's kind of learning and growing, and evolving, is that, man, when we're out here, it doesn't matter, is there a game coming Friday night or not, my level of intensity and focus within this drill and this moment is critical to the success of the team. So I wanted to make sure that we maintained our edge, throughout the course of the week. And then also, we backed off the workload in terms of, the mileage that they put on their legs, the things we spent more time in the recovery room this week to be able to get our bodies back underneath us for a real physical push these last 5 weeks of the season.
You got to open up on the road against the defending district champs. How do you feel about the challenge, that Legacy's going to provide?
I love the challenge. I think Legacy has been kind of the standard team of this district for many years, and rightfully so. They've had a lot of good football teams. They're well coached, good players, good schemes, and that's kind of who everyone in this league has been gunning for, and I love it. Let's open with that. As we start district play here, this team is, top to bottom is full of really solid teams everywhere. There's not one on there that you can look at and say, man, they're not too much off the others. So I think we've got a very balanced league, and I love the challenge of going on the road, taking our team on the road, and let's play the defending champs. I like that.
Yeah, Coach. I feel like Legacy's had a really interesting non-district schedule. I mean, what can you kind of take from that film? They play Trinity, they play Allen, they play a team from Louisiana.
Yeah, Lake Travis.
Yeah, Lake Travis.
I told the guys, that when you're really good, nobody wants to play you. And I've gone to some of those realignment meetings and been looking around and seeing, I need a game, and when you're really good, nobody wants to schedule you. So, I think that's what you see with Midland Legacy. And so because of that, some of these, bigger schools end up competing against each other. And in their case, several of these matchups. So, I think you look at their record, it's 1-4. It's not indicative of, the caliber team that they are, or the level of play, that they have. I think if anything, it really sets themselves up well. They've played excellent competition, through the first, 5 weeks of the season, and it'll benefit them, in district play. But, on the flip side of that, I think there's a lot of confidence that our guys have right now. We've beaten good teams as well, and we're playing good football, and the level of confidence that the team has, and believing in what we're doing is high right now. So I think it's going to be a great matchup. I'm excited for Friday.
Coach, if you broke down the first 2 games of the season and the previous 3, what would you say are the biggest differences you've seen on paper from you guys that show that you guys are going to make a run during district?
I just think confidence. I think that there was, in terms specifically defensively, I think there's a little bit, you get in there and I'm not quite sure, exactly what to do. And then as you gain confidence and you're comfortable in what you're doing, it frees you up to play at a different level than you might normally play. So I think defensively, just the confidence that was gained within those first few weeks, and then seeing really from the second half in Amarillo on, really kind of turned the page defensively for us there. Offensively, there's been a level of consistency that we've played with. I think that, I told the staff again yesterday, I think, through 5 games in a season, I don't know that I've been a head coach of a team that's had more, 10-plus play drives than this team has. We've sustained drives and have not, shot ourselves in the foot to get out of a drive. We've had a bunch of them, and that's really good. That's hard to do, and so this offense has done a really good job of, just building on that consistency and getting the ball in the end zone. We've had a couple of big play, touchdowns, throughout the course of the season. We've had a lot of, drive the ball and work it downfield and put it in the end zone. we showed the ability to do both of those things. That creates for a dangerous offense.
I was going to ask about Jimmy Edwards. I think he's got 7 touchdown catches for y'all, and just with Colton Hill going down, it just seems like his play has been absolutely critical. How do you feel about the way he's kind of?
Jimmy's played great. You know, he's become kind of the pseudo leader of that group. You know, and of course losing Colton was difficult and tough, and another really fine player, and we hope to have him back. You know, in the weeks ahead. But Jimmy has really filled that void. You know, there was a vacuum there, and he just grabbed it immediately. You know, has made big plays for us in the passing game. He blocks well. You know, he does a really good job without the football in his hands. And because of that, you know, he's providing an element for us offensively where somebody's got to have an answer for him. And whenever you have to have a plan, you know, for one particular person on an offense, it opens things up for other guys. So you're seeing things open in the run game, and some of our other receivers who stepped up and had good games as well. That's the effect that you can have when you play well, and Jimmy certainly has done that.
Yeah, Coach, kind of going back to the matchup against Legacy, sort of what do you anticipate seeing from them, and how do you want your team to kind of come out, especially in that first half?
Yeah, you know, I expect seeing, you know, their best football out in front of them. They've had a week off just like we have. I think everybody in our league, other than Midland High, was off last week. So I think you're going to see a healthy, a refreshed, a renewed team that kind of gets refocused, and everybody, you know, puts it into really 2 seasons. You've got your non-district and then your district season. And you know, there's a 0-0 record that everybody has within the league. So I think it's a great time for a reset. I'm certain that that's what they did, you know, at Midland as well. I know we certainly did here. So I think that everybody kind of just erases the page. We kind of break it, tear it down to the studs, and you begin to rebuild. Now, you know a lot more about your team than you did, you know, going into week 1. We certainly do. So now you know kind of what makes this team tick, what is the DNA of this team, and every team is different. So I think that they're finding out things about their team, so are we, and that's what's great about the non-district schedule is you can kind of piece those things together, and here's who we are, here's our identity, you know, this is what we're going to hang our hat on, this is what we're going to be known for. So I think when you play 5 non-district games, you have plenty of time to get that figured out, and so I'm expecting a great game Friday night. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Coach.
Appreciate it.
It's hard to believe how reckless some people can be and how hard they fight against real victims. You need a partner who consistently beats the giants and who will never, ever flinch.
Hello and welcome back to the show. I'm Joe Hyde, publisher of San Angelo Live. I have from the school district, San Angelo Independent School District, I have, is it doctor? Or is everyone a doctor of the school district?
Not everyone.
Dr. Meryl Brandon, he is the assistant superintendent for finance, which is effectively what you call the chief financial officer. So you have a pretty big, like, dual budget you have to take care of every year. Probably one of the biggest ones in San Angelo.
That's true. It's about 127, 128 million a year.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
And put that in perspective, the county is about 65 million. I guess the city's probably close to what your budget is.
Yeah.
It's up there in the hundreds of millions of dollars because they have the water department and you know all the enterprise funds that go in it with. But anyway, we were going to talk about the. I'm a big proponent of lower tax rates, right? I've always been like that. And I've been kind of hammering on what tax rates we're getting taxed at for our property taxes, which everyone remembered in the summer of 2023, everyone complained about the valuations. Well, your valuations of your property get set primarily by rules from the Texas Comptroller. And we really, I mean, not even Drew Darby, the most powerful politician in the Concho Valley, can't tell the Texas Comptroller how to set your property valuations. So the other side of it, to keep your taxes rate, the amount of taxes you pay every year, is to try to look at what they're setting our tax rates at. And I find that's interesting in that the county and the city, they always kind of sort of lower the tax rate, but it's really an increase in taxes because your property went up in value. In fact, the city is a little bit more blatant this year. They just raised your tax rate and the property and the gross amount of property came in. But the interesting thing about school financing that is not true for county or municipalities in Texas is that you have Texas legislature meddling with it. And so we don't know exactly where we stand as far as like the big thing. I mean, let's go back 6-7 years ago. We had this thing called acetar.
Right.
You remember that?
I do.
Yeah. And you could, I didn't even know what acetar stood for, but it did something with the tax rates, right? Ultimately. But now we have in the Texas legislature, we have a thing called compression, where they're compressing the tax rate at all the school districts in Texas, all 1,200 or 1,300 of them there are. And so that's putting the San Angelo Independent School District in a very unique position in that first time in many, many years, probably ever.
Right.
Your tax rate at 81 cents per $100 is close to the city's tax rate of like 77 cents per $100.
That's
I mean, y'all are within a nickel.
Yeah.
Right? It used to be school districts were like, $1.21, $1.26, something like that. But now we're down to 81 cents. So what's the financial picture of the San Angelo ISD with that lower tax rate, and why is that tax rate so low?
The state continues to compress the tax rate, which is great for our taxpayers. And they then supplant the money that's not earned at the local level, the state pays.
Right.
And so, there comes a time, then you get it probably as low as you can, because then the state's not going to be able to fund that from their side. So for San Angelo ISD, like you said, it's the lowest in 10 years, and it's continued to go down over the years, both in our maintenance and operations and in our INS. But the taxpayers have seen that total tax rate come down, and 81 cents is about as low as you'll see almost anywhere.
Yeah, that's really low. You mentioned maintenance and operation and interest in sinking. Those are the two portions of the tax rate. I think everyone has that same thing, but for school districts, it's particularly significant because our system in Texas kind of forces you to go out and get bonds or get debt to build new facilities.
That's right.
I mean, you can't just save money up on the M&O side, on the maintenance side, and say, I'm going to save $28 million and build a new elementary school. The system is that you got to go get bonds.
That's right.
Right. So explain how the INS, which is interest and sinking, that's your bonds, and your M&O work together.
So the maintenance and operations, the M&O is your local tax rate, and that pays for utilities, salaries, buses, repairs, HVAC units, anything that you can think of within the district. The tough part of that is about 85% of the budget is salaries, across the district. And so you're really operating on 15%. And so much like your home, if you were going to do a major remodel, major construction project at home, you'd take out a loan. You'd get a mortgage, just like you do on your home, or refinance. A refinance, not the mortgage. And so the same way for the school district. You really have to go to the taxpayers and say, we need to build whatever that is, or remodel, and there's a tax rate associated with that and a number of years that you're going to pay it back.
So when you're computing the tax rate that the residential homeowner in Southland sees, it's combined of two things. It's combined of what you're paying on interest and sinking for those bonds from, in our case, back in 2008 was probably the last bond we've had.
Right.
And then your maintenance and operation, which is primarily teachers and administrator and worker salaries for the school district. So you had those two together, and that's where you get 81 cents.
Right.
So it's not really tricky.
Right. Yeah, it's a straight calculation. And so, our tax rate this past year was 69 cents for the M&O and 11 cents on the INS for the 81-cent tax rate.
Okay. So in the intricacies of school finance law and the TEA and all those weird words and phrases they make in the acronyms, it's almost like being in the military, to tell you the truth. They have this thing called the golden pennies.
They do.
Right? And how many golden pennies are there?
There are 8.
There are 8 golden pennies. And I guess in order to incentivize school districts to, bring up the tax rate, the M&O tax rate on their side, the state will match those pennies with, I guess in our case right now, we're looking at adding 3 of those 8 golden pennies, which is the last 3. The last 3. We're looking at adding those to our M&O rate, which would actually increase our M&O rate from 69
to 72.
Okay, so we're going from 69 to 72 cents, and you're asking people to vote in November to allow these more golden pennies to be added to our tax rate, which would obviously, if everything being the same, that would raise the tax rate 3 cents. And I've already done the math for you, Merle. For a $300,000 house in Southland, you're looking at $90 a year.
Right.
Right? That's what it is.
That's about right.
Okay. And so how much revenue does that generate? How much does the state match with that? Those 3 extra cents.
And that's the nice thing about the golden pennies. I mean, the state really did want to incentivize school districts raising local taxes to pay for their schools, and so the 8 golden pennies are paid at a higher rate, and so the
state pays you more money
matching. So, for example, the 3 pennies for San Angelo ISD relates to $2 million locally, but if we raise that $2 million locally, the state will pay $4 million on top of that.
So you're looking at $6 million.
Right.
So those 3 pennies can generate $6 million in revenue. Give the voter or the listener out here an idea what $6 million buys at the San Angelo ISD.
Oh goodness, buses. Buses these days are $120,000, $130,000 a piece. And so we in San Angelo ISD with approximately 80 buses, we recycle those every 15 years, and so we would buy 6 to 8 buses each year just to keep the mileage down, the fleet in shape. So I think that's a good example. So we budget approximately $1 million a year just in a replacement cycle for buses.
Okay, so there's one of the 6.
That's right.
What does $1 million give you as far as salaries?
So a 1%, it's almost $1 million for a 1% increase in salary.
Okay.
So to offer a 1% pay raise would cost the district approximately $1 million. And then we know what inflation has done, and so 1% would hardly touch what people are experiencing and what things cost across the board: insurance, gas, groceries.
And to put that in perspective, back in 2022, inflation went up 10%. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now 2023 probably another 10%, and now we're probably at another 10%. So somewhere between 25 to 30% inflation on primarily food and probably housing costs too.
Well, and for the school district, insurance cost. I mean, property casualty is just, every time a hurricane hits or there's a hailstorm, and so we've seen an increase of like 80%.
Of insurance, of insuring your buildings.
Yes, of insuring the buildings.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So we're looking. You're hoping we can get an extra $6 million if you can convince people to vote for a 3-cent tax increase. Right. That's on that side. But then what you did was, the school district was back when we were arguing over Robert E. Lee Middle School. The school district was doing something very smart in the finance department. They refinanced all those bonds.
They did.
At the very low interest rates. They went from 5% down to 2% or something.
Correct.
And so because they were able to do that, because someone had the foresight to do that, we're looking at lower payments on bonds.
We are. That interest rate saved approximately $7 million over the life of the bonds. And with the restructure of the homestead exemption of $100,000, the state also supplants the INS. So for what we weren't able to collect in that $100,000 drop in homestead exemption, the state is also sending us that check to supplement that.
Really?
They are.
So they're going to pay. So they're going to give the residential taxpayer $100,000. Went from $40,000 to $100,000 exemption on their homestead exemption, and then the state is going to pay the school district whatever you lost.
Because they're not going to hold the school district accountable for their drop in or I should say, it's actually a drop in taxes, but their increase in the homestead exemption.
Right.
So between the lower interest rates and then that money from the state, we're able to lower the INS rate and still make our bond payment.
So you're going to lower your INS rate 3 cents.
Right.
And you want to increase M&O rate 3 cents.
Correct.
So it would be, you're still going to be at that 81 cents.
Right. There would be no tax increase. Very important to the Board of Trustees, as the tax rate has decreased over the 10 years. As we looked at the TRE and increasing.
What is the TRE?
So the tax rate, the tax ratification election.
Okay.
So the 3 golden pennies have to be approved by the voters.
Okay.
And so the board, rather than just asking for an increase, the board said, how do we make it no tax increase? And that was one way we could do that, is to lower the INS rate, the payment on the bonds, drop that 3 cents to ask for the 3. So really the $2 million that's raised locally by our taxes in San Angelo ISD, we've dropped that same $2 million in the INS, and we can still make the payment. So there's no increase in tax across the SAISD.
So you can think of it this way. What you're doing is you're taking $2 million a year away from Wall Street financiers, and you're giving it to us.
Right.
Right? I mean, that's the kind of way to
Yeah.
think of it, because you're not paying an interest
Right.
on the INS side. Okay, so now I'm a homeowner, and I've been hit with tax increase after tax increase on my properties. I perceive that.
Right.
A lot of people, I mean, I hate to say this, but my building went down in value during the thing, but don't tell anyone. But regardless of that, you see your valuations going up. Most people have. They're primarily their land valuations. And they said, this is an opportunity. I can get another 3 cent tax increase or decrease. I can go from 81 cents, I can get it down to 78 cents.
Right.
Right? So so if I vote against Prop A, which is your ballot referendum for this
Correct.
for this golden penny thing, I could actually I'm voting for another 3 cents off my tax rate.
You would be.
So
Yeah, and that's the hard part. And so I think it's an effort in transparency by the Board of Trustees, and just to say we're reaching out. We realize that could happen, but the $6 million, if you think about that, $6 million coming into the school district, and the thing is, it's not just 1 year; it's every year, right? From
so
now
you're going
on.
to get $6 million a year for perpetuity until you change the tax rate.
Right. And so that $6 million, and anybody that's looked at Prop A and what the money will be used for, $4 million of that will go directly to increases in salary across the 1,825 employees. So the increase in teachers would be $2,500 a year, and we'd be able to raise the starting teacher salary from $47,500 to $50,000. So it's really about not just retaining staff, but it's also about recruitment. And that's our HVAC, our plumbing, our electrical, our bus drivers.
Your buses.
Our buses, right? All of that. And then add to that safety and security, making sure we have an armed officer at every campus.
Are you going to form your own police or San Angelo ISD police force, or are you going to hire a San Angelo police officer or a constable or a sheriff deputy?
So we would hire the San Angelo officers, and then also Tom Green County Sheriff's Department.
Okay. So you're not
both
setting
are
up. You're not
happening.
setting up another bureaucracy or something.
No.
You're actually.
Right.
We're actually leveraging what we already have.
Right. And so it's a help. It's a benefit, and I'll tell you what I'm really proud of the partnership is when you have a schedule to put officers on campuses. That schedule filled up almost immediately when it went out to the 4 campuses that are covered by the Tom Green County Sheriff's Department. There's all kind of things they can do in overtime, but they want to protect kids.
Yeah.
And they've been a great partner, both SAPD and the Tom Green County Sheriff's Department, to be on our campus protecting our staff.
So they're going to be
and
working more
students.
than 40 hours a week, and they're going to get
Right.
paid a little bit of extra.
That's right.
Chinga
Yeah.
money to guard our campuses. All right, I want to talk about this a little bit. Every local government has basically there's 3 tax rates you got to worry about when you're going into tax season. The first thing is the no new revenue rate, and then at the top of the sphere is what's called the voter approval rate. So where no new revenue rate is the rate in which you tax, the rate you have to set to raise the same amount of money as the previous year, with the exception of whatever new property was put on the rolls.
Right.
Okay, so even though it's a no new revenue rate, it actually generates a little bit more revenue because you've built another subdivision, for
Right.
example, or some factory came and built, or there's a commercial property that was built that year. On the other end of the spectrum is what they call the voter approval rate, and the Texas legislature, because of this, the local governments, are always under duress for primarily payroll.
Right.
They said if you have more than 3.5% increase in revenue on existing properties from the previous year, you have to go to the voters to get approval. That's why it's called the voter approval rate. So there's a 3.5%, I guess, window where you can set the tax rate. Every year I've covered the news. They have set the tax rate somewhere between the no new revenue rate and the voter approval rate. Usually, particularly if it's the city of San Angelo, hello, Brenda, you set it pretty close to the 3.5%. So you're just below having to ask the voters to approve your rate.
Right.
Where was this, I guess, 81 cents? Where was that on that scale?
82 cents
82
would have been
cents.
the
So 82 cents was your no
new
revenue.
revenue tax
So
rate.
this 81 cents is actually a penny below the
Right.
no new revenue rate.
It is.
So what you're really voting for on Prop A is you're voting for a tax decrease while you're helping your school district with salaries primarily,
Right.
or a bigger tax increase, which will give you another $90 a year.
Right.
That's the choice.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the same way for the Board of Trustees. You know, when the 82 cents, we had a slight drop in property values, right? So the no new revenue went up just a little bit, but that wasn't the goal, right? The goal was not to increase taxes, and how can we do that?
Right.
And so
it was really pretty fiscally responsible.
it is.
It's a very fiscally
Yeah.
responsible budget. Not many people can do that. Of course, I know the school district gets help from the legislature, but
Right.
still, that is notable that both of your choices
Right.
are below or actual real tax decreases.
Yeah.
So I've been covering Lubbock, like, for example, Lubbock County. 2 county commissioners out of the 5 refused to show up to the budget meetings because the judge was going to set the tax rate above the no new revenue rate. And so what happened was Lubbock County had to, since they couldn't pass a budget, they passed a budget, but they couldn't pass a tax rate. They had to revise their budget to live within their means of the no new revenue rate.
Right.
Because these 2 county commissioners refused to come and vote, so they couldn't get a quorum to set the rate. At the Lubbock City Council, the mayor, Mark McBrayer, attempted to set he came out with a budget that was at the no new revenue rate, and primarily they saw a gigantic increase in revenue from this thing called TCOS, which is, I guess, the ERCOT or someone that they send power transmission over the city of Lubbock, and over all those properties that the city of Lubbock has, they were paying them $2.5 million or something like that. He said, let's take that and let's set the tax rate and the new revenue rate. Well, all the rhinos on the city council would not support him, so they ended up setting a higher tax rate. Here in San Angelo, the city of San Angelo had some trouble with the valuations from last year. They were set, I guess, too low, so they didn't set the tax rate high enough, and so they were kind of scammed out of some money by the appraisal district. Now, realize last year the appraisal district had had all these protests and everything, so
Right.
they pretty much had to go with a guess. The guess was too low, and so they had a deficit they had to make up, and so they set the tax rate pretty high. The county collected their valuations were $110 million more than, or they ended up being $110 million more than what they were estimated last year. They just consumed all that and raised the rate. They set the rate, somewhere between the no new revenue rate. So you actually got a tax increase out of the county, a tax increase out of the city. The school district actually gets we get a real tax decrease. So I think that's notable.
Yeah, and part of it started with the budget, just like you're talking about. We had probably 60. I've seen as much as 65% of the school districts in Texas had to adopt a deficit budget.
Right.
And the board was, just wanted to be transparent about that. And so the question for 2 months was, how do we set our budget without incurring a deficit, without pulling money out of your savings or out of your
Right.
general fund? And so right off the bat, when we started the budget process, we asked every program to cut the budget by 5%. And so we balanced the budget, and then we received our insurance rates for employee health insurance.
And that was high.
It went up 9%. And so that was $60 a month per employee, $720 a year per employee. But the board wanted to make it happen, right? It's important that we offer a health insurance policy to employees at no cost. When you have a student coming right out of college.
So you don't pay 50%. You
Right.
pay the full
We
boat.
pay all of it. and we have that option. And so we went back to the drawing board basically, and we cut another 5% out of the budget so that we could provide that for staff.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you really do need to backfill some of
We
your
do.
payroll
It's-
there.
Yeah, and that's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way everybody at home is having to handle their budget.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's cutting back, they're tightening the belt, and I think they expect the same thing from us.
I think another thing on school districts that's unique as opposed to county and city is that our neighborhoods and your house value is defined by the schools that serve them. Have you thought about that?
Mm-hmm.
If you have a nice school, if you're in a
Right.
good school district, your
Yeah.
house values will generally be higher
Right.
than if you're in a bad school district. And the fastest way to make a bad school district is to lose your employees,
Right.
right?
That's true.
And so taking care of the employees buttresses the school district. We can do it right now without any kind of expense. Actually, they're going to give me a tax cut,
Right.
and I'm going to be able to increase my value, or the value for a teacher to continue to work in San Angelo ISD.
Right.
And that will probably either maintain or slightly increase my property values.
That's true. Yeah, that'd be a good way to look at it. I mean, so goes the state of our schools, so goes our cities and our communities, right? And you're exactly right. When our schools do well and they're well maintained, then they're a bright spot, you
Right.
know, in our cities and our community. So our homes being in that district, very well can go up in value because of that.
Right. And last, I'll say that the other important thing for maintaining our home values is that our school districts have to have a very bright front porch. So what about the Bobcats this year? I had to ask the finance guy about
that's
the
right.
Bobcats.
Yeah, so we've had some good wins in there, and you know, some definitely some tough games, and but I've been impressed with
With the
how
new
hard,
coach,
yeah,
Coach Smith.
yeah, that's right, and how hard they've played, and so. You know, people talk about rebuilding years. Where they are or they aren't, right?
Yeah.
You never know. But been impressed with what he brings to the community and to our students.
And of course we can't leave without mentioning Lakeview.
Yeah.
I mean those guys are having a tougher district this year. I
Right.
think. And
Yeah.
so they're always trying to get that that
Yeah.
rebuild. But obviously our hearts and prayers are with Lakeview too to
Oh, yeah.
Wilson because even we're seeing a lot of infill building up in the Lakeview area, a lot of new construction up there.
Right.
And we'd like to see Lakeview's football team kick some
Yeah.
derriere,
Yeah, I got to watch them a couple of weeks ago, and they played well. I
Yeah.
mean, definitely a lot of potential across the board
Right.
on the team, and so and you're right. I think people sometimes don't realize some of the new construction that goes on the north side of San Angelo, and look for that to probably continue.
Well, I think you're going to see it because of affordability, housing affordability. If the lots are too expensive down here on the south side,
Yeah.
and we need affordable housing.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. But anyway, Prop A is on the ballot. You can go
Yeah.
vote for Trump and vote for Trump Prop A. I know you didn't want me to say that, but it's November 5th. When was the last day to register to vote? It's like
Today. Yeah.
So-
So we definitely want everyone to register.
Register
You
to
know.
vote. If you're not
Yeah.
registered to vote, man, I tell you what, might as well just throw in the towel.
Yeah.
But make sure you get out there and vote. Vote early. When's early voting start?
Oh,
I can't remember either.
12th?
The 12th of October.
No, 21st.
21st.
That's right. 7th is the last day to register, and then the 21st,
Okay.
early voting.
Everything's divided by 7,
Yeah.
so early voting starts the 21st. Prop A will lower your taxes and allow us to pay our teachers more, buttress up the San Angelo ISD's budget in a big way with all that matching money from the state. Your choice is to vote for it, and that votes for all the good things. If you vote against it, you're going to get a larger tax increase, but it's basically $90 if you own a $300,000 house. So you either want to vote to help your school district and get a tax cut, or just be selfish and vote against it. That's my editorial input. Anyway, Dr. Brandon, thank you for coming on our show.
I appreciate it.
I'm Joe Hyde, San Angelo Live. Back to the studio.
When it comes to unique pieces you can't find anywhere else, Kano's Diamonds and Coins is your one-stop shop. With over 24 years in the diamond and coin industry, Cano's Diamonds and Coins is West Texas's choice for diamonds, jewelry, coins, silver, and gold. Owner Bill Cano stands by his work and offers free consultations, including estate jewelry. Don't just trust anyone with your valuables. Come see the staff at Cano's at 1016 West Beauregard in San Angelo.
Thanks for watching the Live Daily News Show, the only locally owned news show in the Concho Valley. Go like us on Facebook, X, and other social media platforms, and download the San Angelo Live mobile app to stay up to date with news from in and around the Concho Valley. Thanks again, and we'll see you back